It's Kevin Kietzman Uncanceled on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. I'm Kevin Kietzman, back in the seat for a short week. We got a Monday off, Labor Day. Hope you enjoyed your long, extended weekend. We extended ours out even longer, doing some traveling this past weekend. We'll talk about that a little bit later on the show as I went to one of the national parks. I've been to several, and I went to one that was just exceptional. I'll tell you where it was, how to get there, and why you should do it a little bit later on Uncanceled. I want to thank Nikki Pace for being in Thursday and Friday. Did a wonderful job hosting Uncanceled. I think she had a really good time doing it and obviously put a lot of work into it. She had many great local topics and guests on. It was great to see and hear her back on the radio. Appreciate you, Nikki. Thank you so much for helping out on Thursday and Friday. That was awesome. We got a big show ahead, including the courts once again blocking Donald Trump from doing the work that the American voters hired him to do, and how it's costing you money as it's now affecting the stock market again. Here we go. The Democrats don't like prosperity. They're trying to hurt you. They don't hate you enough, is the bottom line. The Democrats can't hate you enough. We'll spend a couple of minutes talking about the protesters on the plaza, what a sad sack group that was over the weekend. They just look so miserable. I mean, I just feel terrible that there isn't something better for them to do. Go play some disc golf or something. You know, it's like you look so sad and unhappy. Some shocking Gen Z statistics about getting jobs and how they get them that's going to make you laugh. And a college football coach says he has the strangest reason this week why he has to stay at a hotel an hour and 20 minutes away from the stadium for the road game they're playing. You're not going to believe why they're so far away from the destination of where they're playing their game. It's all ahead and Uncanceled. And we start today with the United States Court of Appeals on Friday striking down Trump's tariffs. And then this morning, a federal judge in California striking down Trump's, or referring to this as illegal, immigration enforcement, where he called in the National Guard in Los Angeles. You may recall several weeks ago, as immigration enforcement was taking place, there was unrest, things burning in the streets, and this, of course, is where the flag burning executive order is coming from. The next time somebody demonstrates in the streets and they're burning a flag, that person is in real trouble. Because, you know, when the Democrats demonstrate or protest, they're mostly peaceful. But the unpeaceful things are like Molotov cocktails at police officers, trash can fires, burning Trump scarecrows or mascots, burning the flag. We know what it is that they do. They get all kinds of crazy out there in the street, and nobody likes it. Nobody wants it. It's not free speech. It's mostly crime, the things that they're doing. The free speech part is okay, but you don't have the right to just go gather and block a road and block cars and burn things. That's not free speech in America, and nobody has the right to do that. But California sued Trump over going into Los Angeles and doing this with the National Guard. And a San Francisco judge that apparently is a lifer, because this judge was appointed by Bill Clinton back in the 90s, has said that what Trump did is illegal, and now, of course, it advances up the food chain to a court of appeals or eventually the Supreme Court. On Friday, the U.S. Court of Appeals struck down the tariffs that Donald Trump has put into place with a 7-4 ruling where 6 of the 7 that ruled against Trump were appointed by Democrats. Trump referred to this group of judges as highly partisan. This all started on Liberation Day, which was April 2nd. Donald Trump declaring a national emergency for immigration, drugs, and tariffs against Canada, Mexico, and China for their lack of any effort to stop the drugs from coming in. I think Trump's only made one mistake here. I would declare the national emergency our national debt. The $35 trillion that we owe is spiraling out of control. You will not find anyone anywhere in government, economics, or just somebody who pays taxes and works for a living that thinks the United States of America owing that much money is anything but an emergency. In fact, I can't find anybody that argues that it's okay and it's good and it's fine or whatever. Maybe the national emergency, in order to have these powers to do these tariffs, shouldn't be so broad as, immigration enforcement or drug control, which are really finite things that maybe can be drawn up by jurisdiction. The one thing that we all have in common is $37 trillion in debt. And if the tariffs are designated to pay down, as I've suggested here, not the interest, to pay down the principal, if you took 80% of everything you brought in and take 20%, do whatever you want with, if you take 80% of it and you designate it for bringing down the principal on the debt, what is actually owed, not the interest every month or every quarter, I think that's a national emergency. I don't know how that couldn't be a national emergency. Look, I don't know what happens when this all goes to the Supreme Court. Trump typically wins when it gets to the Supreme Court. And I've argued many times on this show, and you've heard me say this. I don't mind the Democrats fighting him. I think it's good for elections for Republicans. I think when they fight him on things like boys and girls sports or immigration or open borders or many of these other things that we see over and over and over, and including things like defunding police. Now, those are big, broad, financial type things. But when you get into these things where Trump is doing, sending the National Guard into Los Angeles, to me, he's saving lives. The tariffs are more than just the money. And maybe the national emergency part is the safety and security of our nation. What we're finding out is America and the world, the whole world, is a safer place because of the tariffs. Nobody ever talks about this. But these peace deals that Trump has done, he's done 6 peace deals. I don't think any of them would have been done without tariffs and without the threat of tariffs. And these countries believe him when he says, I'm going to put a 50% tariff on you and your economy's shot and your little war with these people you're fighting with next door in Uganda or whatever these countries are that, they're all fighting, all these warring nations. There's real people dying. Every day for 30 years, real people dying. And now that's over in many places because of tariffs. Trump didn't get those people to stop fighting in his first term, but here came the entire world focused on American tariffs. Oh my God, what are we going to do if they hit us with tariffs? What's going to happen to our country economically if we don't do business with the United States? Every country in the world is terrified of this. And Trump has created peace on earth through tariffs. And nobody discusses this part. And you have one political party in America that is so hell-bent on opposing everything Donald Trump does, because there's only one way to make sure good things don't happen that Trump puts in place, and that's to stop everything he does. If you stop him from doing it, it can't be good. The possibility of it work, they wouldn't stop anything they didn't think would work. Would they? Honest to God, let's be honest. If the Democrats, why would they go after something Trump is doing if they thought he was going to fail and the American people were going to hate it? They would never go after it. All the Democrats do is go after things they know will work and American voters will like. Their entire ecosystem of the Democrat Party has nothing to do with making America a better place to live, raise a family, work, thrive, be safe, be happy. It has nothing to do with any of that stuff. Every single thing they do is based on getting votes and stopping the other party. So if they can give things away, they don't mind raising your taxes. They love raising the taxes of Republicans to give money to people that don't work, for example, or to illegal aliens, or whatever it may be. Anything that will help them get votes, they'll spend the money there. They don't mind. There's some crazy exemptions on these tariff things. One of them is a China tariff that Trump put in place during his first term. Biden left it there. The court says that one can stand. Wait, what? The court ruled that tariffs are illegal, but the one that Biden was okay with can stay? That's literally how political these judges have become in these courts. This is an utter disgrace to the entire system. Everything is politics. And as much as we don't like politicians, leave the politicking to the politicians. Let them mud wrestle. Let's keep the courts out of this stuff. It just goes on and on and on. $300 billion have already been brought in. What possibly is bad about bringing in $300 billion from other countries. Why would anybody want to stop that? For what reason? Who's that hurting? Now, I don't have a clear plan of where the money's going. And that scares me a little bit because if they're not dedicating this and they're not branding this properly and saying, hey, this is going to this or this is what we're going to do with it, we know we got a tax reduction. The big, beautiful bill passed. The taxes are coming down. So that helps. Maybe this is just replacing that. I don't know. I haven't heard a great plan for getting rid of the deficit. But they're stopping something that's working. They just want to keep fighting in things that are actually going to hurt American citizens economically and likely get people killed. And that's too far for me. I like them fighting against Trump. I think largely them just screaming that everything Trump does is terrible is great for the Republican brand. But there's going to be people that die because of this. And that's not just some sort of hyperbole. The Democrats like to say that all the time. Oh, people are going to die if Trump's elected president. No, people are going to live if Trump is president. There are going to be wars that end. There's going to be more peace. He is the greatest peace president of our lifetime. Doesn't want to fight. If you pick a fight with him, you better be ready to go because he's not going to start a fight he doesn't finish. I can promise you that, and everybody knows that. And financially bringing this money in is great for our country. I can't believe they do this at every turn. And now they want to stop the National Guard when we have riots in the streets of Los Angeles because California won't take care of it. California is a state where Governor Newsom enacted the National Guard as he can as governor, and Tim Walz did as governor of Minnesota during COVID to patrol the streets and do what? There was no civil unrest in the streets. There was nothing crazy going on. They were patrolling curfews and making sure you were locked up inside your house. And these same people file lawsuits against the National Guard being used for what the National Guard should be used for, and that is violence in the streets, crime in D.C. Let's fast track this to the Supreme Court. Let's get the ruling and let's get it over with. I didn't like it that I'm watching National Guard's troops all over the country policing COVID, but I didn't file a lawsuit. I didn't say the president can't do that or the governor can't do that. That's what we put this stuff in place for, is to have it at the disposal of the people we elect. And America elected Donald Trump. The Democrats are wrong. It is working in D.C., and Americans are seeing that. They don't want him to do this in other places because it works. The Democrats hate success. They cannot stand it. If it has anything to do with the Republican and it's successful, it completely unhinges them. They don't want that. They want mayhem. They want despair. They want a class of people that are desperate, that need the government to send them money, send them health care, send them checks, send them medicine, do whatever, dependent on the Democrats. That's what they want. And if all boats are lifted with the rising tide, there's fewer people that need government help. And that's the end of the Democrats. 913-408-7957. That's 913-408-7957. Give me a shout. Love to take your calls next on Uncanceled. This is KCMO Talk Radio. Did you see former football coach John Gruden played golf with Trump over the weekend? We spent some time here on Uncanceled in the past couple of weeks talking about the former Raiders coach being canceled and involving a lawsuit against the National Football League that is advancing. And it looks like good news so far for Gruden. He's the last guy that's been canceled by anybody that isn't back yet. The NFL won't have him. We'll see how it plays out. But now he's playing golf with Trump, so maybe Trump gets involved too. 913-408-7957. If you'd like to join us on Uncanceled, we start with Will in Westwood on this Tuesday. Good morning, Will. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Kevin. I got two things for you here. First, one of the reasons that the liberals always gave for not enforcing immigration laws was, well, that's federal. These state and local police should be enforcing state laws and local laws. Immigration's federal. We shouldn't use our police for federal. Then Donald Trump wants to put federal officers in to enforce immigration, and they go nuts. It just shows they really do want our country flooded with illegal aliens.
Yeah, there's no question that's the case. And I know there were challenges against the open border, but nobody really stopped Joe Biden or the auto pen or whoever did it from bringing tens of millions of illegals in over 4 years. They brought all those people in, and it happened. Look, if that's the way the vote turned out and Biden was the president, the Democrats were in charge, and it's what they wanted to do, you have to live with your actions. What the American voters said was, we don't like the policies of these Democrats. We're making a change here. We're going back to Trump because we hate it. The Democrats' plan is never to do the right thing. It's when you're not in power, just go to court and stop the other guy from being successful. It's so anti-American, it's crazy.
Agreed. Okay, the other thing, totally different. I was curious what you thought of Jim Rome. I hate him. I think he's horrible.
A pretty random question. I appreciate that. Jim Rome is a sports show host, national sports syndicated host, who's been around since at least the 90s, who gained fame way, way, way back with a Rams quarterback named Jim Everett that was on his show. And he was one of the first guys doing a show on TV, not just radio. And Jim Everett was sitting there with him, and he wouldn't answer a question. He said, instead of calling him Jim Everett, he started calling him Chris Everett. And Chrissy Everett, who was a tennis player, insinuating, you're a girl. You're afraid to answer the question. Come on, Chrissy. Answer it, Chrissy. And he got up in his face. And Jim Everett, who was a quarterback, lifted the table up, slammed it over, and went after Jim Rome. When that happened...
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Watch it. Jim Rome at that moment became very famous for something that I thought was one of the most Bush League things I've ever done ever seen in an interview, and he wound up going national over it. He's an acquired taste. He was extremely popular in the late 90s and early 2000s, but I'm not even sure where you can hear him now. Do you listen to him a lot?
No, I used to, before I even knew about the controversy. I used to listen to him late night on probably on this station. I don't know, some AM station years and years ago, back when he was in his heyday. And he hated the Kansas City Chiefs. Never had anything good to say about the Chiefs or their players. And then when I found out that he kept calling Jim Everett Chris Everett, and Everett, watch that YouTube, everybody, because Everett warns him. Everett says, "Don't do it again."
Yeah, I'm going to come for you. Yeah.
And I just thought, what a horrible person. This guy's worse than I thought. He's just he's a POS.
Okay, thank you, Will. I appreciate the call. He's not always been my cup of tea. We had Jim Rome in Kansas City for what at those times were called tour stops. He was on our sister station 1510. And we filled Municipal Auditorium when he came to town. This would have been late 90s, early 2000s. I can't recall exactly what year it was. But we had thousands of people out there and turned people away out in the streets. It was a really, really big deal when he came. His show was a monster show at one point. There's no question about that. And he has made a pile of money, man. I'm not going to sit here and badmouth the guy that went national, made a pile of money, and I assume made a lot of money for affiliates and people along the way. He's different. I'll say this in his defense. At that time, he may have had good reason to not like the Chiefs or to think there was a problem. We had real problems with the Chiefs in Kansas City, if you don't remember. It hasn't always been like this. This is the golden era of Chiefs football. There have been really fallow times where the team was no good, and then there's also been times where it was so crime-riddled out there, it was like, the percentage of crime taking place at Arrowhead Stadium by people that work there, it was like carjackings in Kansas City, Missouri right now. It was up like 79%. They had a drug ring with players on the team smuggling drugs in. They had an FBI investigation. They had a murder-suicide. They had all kinds of crazy. The Chiefs were, and many times, many stages throughout their history, have not been anything Kansas City could be proud of. That is true. So maybe it was one of those times. Not sure. When we come back, why are the protesters that hate Trump on the streets so sad these days? And my trip to a national park. That's up on Uncanceled next on KCMO Talk Radio. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday. Hope your week is off to a great start. If you would like to be part of the show, just give me a shout at 913-408-7957. We'll get you right on. Why are the protesters so sad? Have you noticed? We saw these people in Kansas City over the weekend, and apparently they're upset with redistricting and Trump. So it's a moving target, but it's always Trump. So whether this is going to be redistricting in Missouri or Kansas doesn't really matter. They're upset about the Texas thing. They want to blame Trump, and they gather. And it's a holiday weekend, and so there they are. And they've gone from being, in just 6 months' time, ladies and gentlemen, they have gone from being excitable, motivated, wild protesters chanting and screaming, as silly as it may sound, to where they really look like they're into it, to just really sad. And it occurred to me that what's happened is they're defeated. They're deflated. There's something that has changed with these folks, and their demeanor is completely different than what it's been. And I feel bad for them because they know the first 6 months has been really hard for them, and there's 3.5 years to go. They know that. They're going to get sadder and sadder and less effective. It's not going to work. The polls all reflect what Americans want, and things like safety and security are at the top of people's minds right now, and the economy and tariffs and things of this nature. And redistricting is a very political, wonky thing that they really should be holding signs when they do this saying, "Stop Trump. Don't do what we do. Republicans can't redistrict like we can," because they all do it. I don't care who you're talking to. You can call it gerrymandering. You can call it whatever you want to call it. Both sides do it, and it's tit for tat. And this is the tat. Here we go, because we know what the Democrats have done in California, Illinois, New York, and places like that. They have far greater percentages of Democrat representation in the U.S. House than places like Texas or even Florida or Missouri, for that matter. So they're going to do this. The Republicans are going to do it. And I say go for it. But get it right. Don't screw it up. They redrew my district in Kansas that I live in, and they still didn't get Sharice Davids out. So we've seen this happen and not work. And there are changing demographics and different ways to do things. And it becomes a little more dangerous for Mark Alford to win if they start boogering up his district, and he's got to eat up some Cleaver votes. It gets tougher. But these people that are out there now are just kind of sad. And I don't dislike, I know many of you do. I have plenty of Democrats that I don't like. I got plenty of people that I've met or know or will run into that are just unhappy or surly or make a crack, or you can just kind of tell who and what they are, and I don't particularly like them. But I had a moment a few days ago while traveling to Zion National Park in Springdale, Utah. It is a spectacular place. Our national parks are a thing to behold. We decided to do something a little different while on vacation, and we went on a 20-mile bike tour through Zion. These were electric bikes, because I don't know that Kevin and Jessica would have made it on regular bikes. It's a very steep climb, all those other things, and it was great. And we arrive with directions that we're leaving at 8 a.m. sharp, and we'll be back at 12 o'clock sharp. They want everybody there and on time. They want you there at 7:45, and they say if you're late, we could leave without you. Well, you know me, I'm the first one there. I'm a rule follower. We had an hour drive from our hotel to this bike shop. And we get there, and there's nobody there. The whole thing's locked up. Nothing's going on. One guy shows up, and he's exactly what you would think your bike tour guide is going to be. He's got a really long beard, this ball cap on. He looks like a 37-year-old hippie. And he's one of the most interesting people we've ever met. At first, it was awkward and off-putting. We're like, okay, this is not going to be good. There were a couple of cracks about our national government and things like that. And I thought, boy, this is going to end up a fight somewhere, near Bryce Canyon or something, where I remind him that it was Republicans that built the first national parks on the planet. And there's more money for these national parks in the big, beautiful bill and all these other things. I just knew what it was going to come to. And it never did, because this person was the nicest, most giant-hearted liberal I think I've ever met. Truly walking the walk. He had a master's in physics. He introduced himself as Guru Stu. He's on social media at guru_Stu. And you won't believe what happened over the next 3 or 4 hours. We spent the first hour in the parking lot going nowhere because Stu likes to talk, and he was in no hurry. There was not going to be any hurry on this bike tour because his world moves really slow. And he doesn't just stop and smell the roses. He stops and smells everything in the park. He loves that park. He has, again, a master's in physics and decides to do bike tours so he can go up and back through the canyon every day and make money doing it. It's exactly what he loves. He let us know there's 20 different types of plants and flora inside Zion that do not exist anywhere else in the world. He told us that it took 2 million years for the ice to melt and flood this area, the Bonneville Flats. You've heard of Bonneville Salt Flats, and you know about Salt Lake City and all that. For all of it to melt and carve these canyons and create this mysterious and extremely loud, silent place. It is so quiet, it's deafening inside Zion, and it was a wonderful experience. And he continued to tell us that we are beautiful humans and our spirits, he could feel them, and all these other things that you would think are just crazy. And you started to believe it as you're going through this place. And you're like, I said, Jessica, what do you think? She goes, man, I feel really, really small. Like you're looking around at all this stuff. So if you go to Yellowstone or some of these other parks, they're big, vast, wide open places that are unbelievable. This is not. You're in canyons. You have giant, it's like being at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, but the Grand Canyon is way closer together. And you're bicycling down through it and you're looking up and it's crazy. And you go from sunshine and maybe 85 degrees and into the shade in these canyons, and now all of a sudden it's 52 degrees. And you're like, what? This is, the ecosystem in there is unbelievable. And you feel it. And we went back a different way than we went up. And we're coming down out of this big climb, and we're in a big sunny area where there's road and no cars. And I do like I'm a kid again, and I stand up on my bike because my butt's hurting. I'm an old man. And I stand up and I'm coasting down. And we're probably going maybe 15 to 20 miles an hour coasting down this grade. And Stu's on the walkie-talkies with the whole group. And he's like, isn't this fun? And he turns back around and he's looking at the group. And he's got a camera that he can see us all. He guides us, but he can see it all. And we get down a little farther and we take a break. And he goes, Kevin, what were you thinking when you were standing on that bike coming down the mountain? And I said, well, I was just thinking this is quite amazing. And I need to think a little bit more about things that are not as important as I think they are. And he said, you win today. And this guy was as liberal as he could possibly be. I don't think we could go to a rally together, talk politics, or do any of that. But I'd be really happy to have him as a neighbor or a friend or a brother. He couldn't have been more kind and generous and fulfilled in everything that he does. And the things that make him happy made us happy, if only for a few hours. That's certainly not a way that I could live. I can't live that slow. I can't do it. I can't. But I learned some genuine kindness from him that I'd never thought of before. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I prejudged him more than he prejudged me. That's far different than the people that are out there on the streets protesting Trump. Those people wake up angry every day. Their hearts are filled with hate and disdain. They can't get past the crazy things that they think. This tour guide says he has a therapist. And he was bragging that he has a unicycle that goes 44 miles an hour, but he likes to drive under the speed limit in his little town that he lives in because, you know, the people with the trucks that go to church all the time, they like to drive really fast, and he likes to get in their way and slow them down. And I said, what is your therapist? What does he say about you taking a unicycle 44 miles an hour and driving your car, perfectly safe car, under the speed limit? And he said, they. I said, excuse me? He said, they. My therapist is not a he. And I went, oh, boy. I'm getting set back again now. But it was okay coming from this guy because he was just genuinely happy and in a great, peaceful place. We need more Democrats to find that place and not look so sad standing around Kansas City over redistricting. I don't think Stu is overly political. I don't think he's going to carry a sign and go to a rally. I'm sure he votes. I'm sure he thinks Republicans are out to close the national park and turn them into casinos and things like that. I'm sure that's what they think. They're brainwashed that way. But there was something really good and peaceful about this person that gave me a different perspective. And I asked myself while I was driving back to the resort, which was an hour long, what's wrong with me? that I made some sort of a judgment of a man that I was going to spend the next 4 hours with, listening and taking directions from him because I want to be safe and I want to learn and I'm here to learn. Why would I have a grumpy attitude the first 15 or 20 minutes when I first met him because I thought, oh, boy. And I was convinced he was going to turn this into some political rally for Kamala, and it never happened. It was just great. And I can't more strongly recommend to anybody going to a place more than Zion National Park if you haven't been there. Now, we were at the South End in a town called Springdale, which is one of the most adorable places I've ever seen in my life. There are plenty of resorts there, cabins, homes you can rent. It's a thriving little town that was far more fun than where we were staying in St. George and Ivins. We actually stayed in a place called Ivins, I-V-I-N-S, at a golf resort that prior to summer camp, our caddy told us Patrick Mahomes was out there playing golf, and he bought the entire golf course for the day. He bought everybody's tee time out, sent them home, had the entire place to him and Brittany and a bodyguard on a suggestion from Andy Reid, who has a house there and is building another house, apparently with some land next to Kevin Costner. You can't make this up. Everybody asks, where are you from? Kansas City. Oh, Chiefs. Andy Reid's got a place here. Patrick Mahomes bought this whole golf course a few weeks ago. Just him and his wife and his bodyguard out there playing all day. Apparently they were staying at Andy Reid's house. It's a cool place. It's about an hour from Zion. But Zion was something special. And I don't know how everybody feels about the national parks. This was a much more intimate experience than driving through Yellowstone or something like that where you're hoping to see elk or a bear or things like that. This is I can't say it was a tight space. It was just really cool. It was really cool. We didn't do the whole park. We didn't do the north end. Springdale, Utah, I would highly recommend it to anyone, especially if you got kids. The e-bike trips are great. They have tandem bikes. You take the little kids on. Anybody 12 and up can take a bike up. They're fantastic. It is a great day. And it's something we don't do very often. We've lived in the city our whole life. Connecting with nature for me is having a 5-iron in my hand playing golf. That's not really connecting with nature. I know that. But Zion is something completely and utterly different. And we just absolutely loved it. Just can't tell you how great it was. All right, 913-408-7957. To the phones we go. Who we got on the line here? I'm not refreshed on my screen, Mark. John is in KC. Hello, John. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Fine, sir.
Okay. You're asking why these people are so despondent, especially about this redistricting issue. Maybe part of it is, that the mantra has been, oh, well, Trump won last year, which is really bad, for our party. But wait till the 26 midterms. Listen, I think it's going to be more of a 22 midterm. I think the signs are there. The party registration's not looking good for the Democrats. But they always, could put their hat on, well, maybe if we just need a couple of seats. With this redistricting, if Republicans take it, to a large enough extent in enough states, I mean, it is going to be so out of reach to get the House back. I don't think the Democrats are getting the Senate back. Maybe they get some governorships and local races, but they want to play for the House because I think they're afraid if Trump gets his last 2 years with the trifecta, that's going to help hand it over to Vance. And I just don't think the Democrats have a great bench in 28, so they do not want Vance with a great starting position.
Good call. I agree with everything you said there. That's exactly what the game plan is, and the Republicans are in very good shape, no doubt. We come back, we're going to check in with my man Mark Van Sickle. Some amazing statistics on Gen Z and jobs, and a football coach stays an hour and 20 minutes away from the road game stadium they're playing in for this reason. I'll tell you what it is next on Uncanceled. Okay, Mark, great to be back, buddy. Good to see you again. I've missed you, my friend. How's everything going, okay?
Yeah, it's going well.
What are the ages of people in Gen Z? Do we know the years?
Gen Z, that's probably...
It's the really young ones, right?
30 and younger, yeah.
30 and under?
And then there's probably a new one after that, with the younger.
I think they're going to call that beta.
Mm-hmm, probably.
Starting over? I don't know. Gen Z, 77% of people, Gen Z, in a recent poll, said they have taken their parents to a job interview with them. 77. Now, this has to be like your first job at McDonald's or something. I mean, what are we talking about here?
I drove my daughter for her first job interview, but she stayed in there by herself, and she was only 12. She was going to be a ref.
Well, the question wasn't, did your parents take you to your job interview? It was, did you take your parents to the job interview?
So they went in with them.
Apparently.
Wow.
And then it says 73% of Gen Z says their parents helped them with work assignments. And 45% of respondents said their parents at one point have spoken with their manager at work. What the heck are we talking about here?
That's crazy.
Royals news, did you see Vinny's new haircut?
I have not yet.
Did you hear about it?
No.
Okay, there was a bet that he lost, apparently. He has braided it. Not quite cornrows. It's completely braided. Not going to help. He's made fun of himself, self-deprecating, saying he's not the most attractive man. This isn't going to help. So he lost a bet, and he's braided his hair. We'll see that tonight, right?
He can keep hitting home runs. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters, buddy. Bill Belichick had a rough start. What'd you think of the North Carolina Tar Heels last night?
I mean, they had a great opening drive, and then after that, it was just absolutely dominant by TCU.
Did you think after the opening drive, wow, he's got something? Or did you think, well, I've watched a lot of college seasons start. I've watched a lot of college games where the first team goes and scores 7-0, then they get drilled. I've seen that happen a lot. It doesn't happen much in the NFL, but it happens a lot in college. What were you thinking when you saw it?
They just kept talking about all the, NFL coaches that were on the squad and everything like that. And so I was thinking, all right, they had a good first 10 plays ready to go for this one. And that was out of the gate, ready to go. And then after that, it was just like, all right, we're running the ball. We're not getting anywhere. And they couldn't make up the ground. No, I think you've nailed it. TCU after that was just absolute money. They came in and thought they were being disrespected in this game. They're like, oh, this is all about Belichick. We're going to go. TCU's got a good program. That's a good football team. And underrated this year.
Yeah, and a reminder, everybody in the Big 12 has a quarterback over 30. Like there's experience everywhere.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Do you think that matters Saturday with KU and MU? Jalen Daniels by far the more experienced quarterback.
Yeah, I think Mizzou might be on upset alert next week. That might be a hot take, but, man, it's going to be tough.
Missouri's favored by 6.5. We'll talk more about the border war as the week goes on. Arizona State coach Kenny Dillingham, they won the Big 12 last year, and I like this guy, and a lot of people like him, and he's probably the best news conference coach in America because he just starts riffing. He's very young. He's secure in what he does. They're going to Mississippi State this week. And he said, well, everything's changed here in our program. When we were in the Pac-12, we went to big cities. We just flew from one big city to another. We go to L.A., play UCLA, USC. We go to Seattle and play. He goes, now we're going to places where they're smaller towns. He said, we're staying an hour and 10, hour and 20 minutes away from stadiums. And the guy said, why this week? He said, well, we're going to Mississippi State. It's the closest hotel we could find without a casino.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you don't want those college kids getting in trouble there.
Then he said they eliminated the hotel they stayed at last year at Texas Tech because 10 of their players got sick on the food. He said, we're going to start catering our own food in, special for our players. These coaches are something else. I'm back. Deal with me. That's Uncanceled. The Vince Show is coming up next. Thanks for listening to KCMO Talk Radio.